Attention!
Welcome to the Film Mages Podcast, where the popcorn is our ammunition, the couch is our foxhole, and the cinema is a place of worship.
Now let me see your war face. Ah!
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's really nice. We
And
really
we
got that thing going.
are back.
Hey,
Hello.
everybody. Oh, how's it going? It's the Film Majors. It's Zach.
It's Mick.
It's Alexis.
And who's this just to my side? Is that our first ever returning guest banging his
Is it a
hand into the
charming young
mic stand? Who is
Wow.
that? Who's that waifish young scamp beside me?
Hello, this is Jake.
Lean your
Returning
ass into
guest.
that mic.
I really gotta throat it.
Yeah, you gotta throat that mic, buddy.
I was about to say, yeah, get right up in there.
Yeah, you gotta kiss it. You gotta
Let it tickle that little dangly thing at the back of your throat.
The uvula, I believe, is the correct term.
Oh yeah, that's how you know it's a
Okay,
girl
first
house.
of all, if you recall, I'm quoting that. Okay? That's Bible.
I
That is Bible.
I just
That's
hit
Jesus.
Jake with
That's
Jake with
verse
the
right
Monster
there.
House. I hit Jake with the Monster House reference there, so he's indisposed.
Oh, no.
Wait, Zach, you're quoting Monster House. Alexis is quoting WAP. What is going on?
There it is. There it fucking is. Clean entry into our famous segment. What's going on?
It's also
Mick
known
doesn't get
as
a lot of those
Monster
clean
House,
entries.
aka the unexpected virtue of a wet ass pussy.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Jake. Perfectly timed. As you might notice for eagle-eared listeners, we are in different places. I am once again up in Oregon for a friend's wedding, as is Jake. So we're doing a remote record, and as such, I have only seen one film. Actually, no, that's not true. I watched one before I left. But the only film I've watched up here is The Waterboy with Jake.
Oof. My condolences.
Yeah,
That's a choice.
that is an insane film.
A shabadoo.
Shabbat.
God, you know what? Honestly, that really relevant to today's big topic that we'll get into later. Because I did not consider that, but that's a good example.
Yeah.
And we started watching Deuce Bigelow, American Gigolo, and let me tell you, if you want to change your opinion and think The Waterboy is actually a great movie, start watching Deuce Bigelow, American Gigolo, because comparatively it is so much worse.
Yeah, anytime.
You know what? I remember seeing that movie in theaters, Deuce Bigelow, and just even as a child being like, that wasn't good. It was bad. Not
How
good.
old were you when you saw that in
Oh my
theaters?
God.
I don't know what year did the movie come out, and I can tell you exactly how old I was.
I think it came out in 1999.
The more episodes we do, the more we continue to invalidate ourselves as authorities on the topic of cinema. When
I think we have
rattle these off.
broad-reaching interests and.
Well, first of all, like depression, you can't know the highs until you feel the lows. And I feel like,
Strikes
can you
and
really know
gutters,
good
man.
cinema unless you know bad cinema?
Strikes and gutters.
Yeah, no, I will say that whenever you watch a Happy Madison produced movie that stars someone who isn't Adam Sandler, you're like, oh right, he actually is elevating this terrible material, because when you see someone else perform it, it is it goes from obnoxious to really soul-crushing. And we may have been watching Deuce Bigelow, American Gigolo, right around when former President Donald Trump got shot.
Yeah.
So, it's been an interesting week.
That's right.
I have an immediate correction corner. I've seen the European gigolo, not just the male gigolo. I saw the European gigolo in 2005. I was 10, probably.
Appropriate.
Great.
It's more appropriate than the 1999 one for sure.
That's for sure.
Did anyone see a film that did not contain Deuce Bigelow or Bobby Boucher?
I did, yeah.
Jake, what did you see?
On my plan right out here, I hit the double feature of Anatomy of a Fall and The Beekeeper.
That's a double bill right there.
Wow.
Okay. Thoughts?
I think I liked Anatomy of a Fall, but didn't love it as much as some other people. I just kind of thought that, like, it never sold me on that she actually might have killed him. Like, as much as I was joking, like, I genuinely kind of believed she was innocent from the jump, and it never really, like, sufficiently cast doubt on that. And The Beekeeper is an insane film.
But enough about that.
Jake, we've talked a lot about Anatomy of a Fall on this podcast. I want to hear about The Beekeeper. Alexis has seen The Beekeeper.
I have seen The Beekeeper.
Like, it's just great that, like, the whole thing is, like, he's like, oh, yeah, he's a part of an ancient order that protects the hive.
You have to protect the hive.
From, like, just sort of, like, outside threats. And the form that takes in this movie is, like, a call center running a phishing scheme on old people. And he has, like, a whole line about preying on the elderly is worse than children because children have people to look out for them.
I guess.
That's an interesting take.
That's a take from Mr. The Beekeeper.
It just, like, it's kind of, like, a mostly normal movie that has, like, a lot of the little details are really weird. And just kind of insane if you think about it. Like, the, like, fact that there's, like, the bad guys in it are sort of these, like, Silicon Valley tech bros running a phishing scam, but they're also in bed with the mafia, but clearly the people making the movie couldn't decide if the mafia should be Italian, Russian, or Chinese, so they just kind of made it all three.
A catch-all, for sure.
You gotta have it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's funny you talk about a fairly normal film with just, like, really weird details that I think that's relevant for today's films that we'll be talking about later.
I think that is quite relevant. Mick and I also saw a film in theaters before I left LA.
That's right.
And that was Kill, which is a Hindi action movie that has gotten a lot of hype. And personally, I don't totally get it. Mick, I feel like you kind of felt the same.
Yeah. Kill is the new it's a new Hindi action thriller. It's the one that you'll probably recognize it with the trailer, where it's just a bunch of violence that takes place on a train, which I love a good train action film. They do exist. There's one movie that we have covered in the past that I'm not super hot on, but I'll be honest with you, that movie I described, Bullet Train, I don't know if I prefer Bullet Train over this, but my issue with Kill is, while it does have a lot of fun, like, choreography, it actually has a lot of good choreography. I'm not going to say fun, because maybe I'm getting older, maybe I'm getting boring, but it kind of teetered on violence porn for me. It was just so relentless and so exhausting that it wasn't a fun action movie. It was just like a hard to watch action film. And then also the lead character, our super cop, or not even super cop, our super soldier, was just kind of like this, like, unemotional fascist type character as the movie went on. And I got more emotion from the bad guys. I started rooting for the bad guys towards the end of the film. So, you know, if you're a huge fan of action movies, check it out, I guess. It wasn't for me.
Well, I would also say, like, you guys, like, it's a Hindi action film, and those are kind of subpar. Like, if you want to watch a good Indian action film, it's got to be Telugu or Tamil. Their, like, bread and butter is the most batshit insane, like, really expensive action films you've ever seen. And the Hindis are more, like, the Hindi-speaking, like, what's, like, known as Bollywood traditionally is, like, kind of more known for, like, musicals, romances, or whatever. But if you want, like when I was in Nepal, I saw this movie called War, which was fucking Tamil and just batshit insane. And same with Leo. If you guys haven't
I
seen
watched Leo last
you need
year.
to watch Leo.
I didn't love Leo, but Leo is it's fun and is like fucking crazy.
But it's also just like, what if a studio gave a like 20-year-old dude who was really into Tarantino like $40 million to make the movie of his dreams?
Yeah, that movie does feature a song that like repeatedly says that the lead character is a badass. So,
in English, like,
yes, it goes, Leo Das is a badass, just over and over again. That movie was way more fun than Kill. I will say Kill did have the most unintentionally funny moment in any movie last year.
Yeah, dude.
Or this year.
Yeah.
Spoilers for Kill, if anybody cares. So the movie, like, opens kind of like a Die Hard riff, which is also relevant to a movie that we're going to talk about today a little bit. But then the hero's girlfriend, who he's like trying to save from these bandits on the train, gets killed. And the scene in which she is killed, truly, she may be one of the most killed people in any movie, because she gets like stabbed and then we cut back to our hero's like very sad face on the ground as he's like pinned down by bad guys. And then we cut back and she's getting like stabbed again. And then we cut back to our hero and he's so sad. And then we cut back and her throat is being cut. And at this point I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, it is so over the top. And it cuts back to her 2 other times until she is thrown out of the train, and then later in the movie it runs it back as a flashback. And like, you can't show me something that's like that horrible that many times without it becoming funny. And I feel like Mick and I were both kind of chuckling in this theater, and the rest of the crowd was maybe not the most happy with us, but it was funny, and I'll stand by it.
Well, it's like he had just proposed to her in the bathroom, like right before this happens.
Always a cool move.
And he literally goes something like, you know, can like please say yes so we can get out of here, because there's a potent concoction of aromas in here, which is funny.
Mix.
Yeah, dispelling no Indian stereotypes. Jesus.
Yeah, but yeah, Zach makes a good point, because this was something I realized is like, you know, we've combined action with horror, which is great. We've combined action with comedy, which we love. We've combined action with romance, which is fantastic. But this was like action melodrama, which sounds like it's fun, and it probably could be. But it was just an odd vibe. Yeah, I didn't love it. Didn't love it. But I saw another new film.
Yeah,
that
I'm seeing it in a couple days. Don't you dare! Don't you fucking dare!
I'm not going to spoil anything, but I have finally seen the long-awaited, the long-anticipated Longlegs, directed by Osgood Perkins. This movie has been marketed masterfully. And it delivers potently on its promise of being creepy. This is probably one of the creepiest movies I've seen, definitely this year, probably within the last couple years at least. It has immaculate bad vibes, which is an interesting sentence, but that's the best that I can describe it. It's just very unsettling. It's very eerie. It's very haunting. The 2 movies that are titled in today's episode, I watched back to back before going to the cinema to watch Longlegs. So I had a Nicolas Cage triple feature.
That sounds like a great fucking day.
And I have to say, Nicolas Cage, he absolutely blew me away. And I don't mean in like a ironic, funny, movie nerd way of, oh my God, Nicolas Cage is going balls to the walls, is just so great, he's so intense. But this time he really tapped into something that I haven't seen all of his filmography, to be fair, but he tapped into something
that would be difficult.
I've never seen from him before. and it was creepy. And I have to say, combining just the general atmosphere of the film and the vibes and the fantastic cinematography, at the end of the day, what really just had me having kind of like an existential panic attack throughout most of the film is after we were introduced to Longlegs, the character, you can't shake him. Like you were in the palm of that character's hand for the rest of the film. And it is relentless, and it is very, very effective. And Maika Monroe she's fantastic. There's a very, very, like I said, a very odd feeling to the movie. It's just uncomfortable. It's just never quite normal. And her character is like that. And I think she and the movie dance with each other in that way, and it's very, very effective. She's a fantastic leading actor. She's wonderful in this film, and I've never seen her act like this before. It's almost like she's autistic, which I really liked, especially from a detective role. Because they've often fans have theorized, is Sherlock Holmes like autistic, or is he on the spectrum? Like, how is he able to tap into this almost superpower of detection? And you kind of get that a little bit with her. However, I will say, while I really liked it, I didn't love it. I think out of a very, very strong film, the story itself is weirdly the thing that I found the least impressive. There were a few times where I felt a little bit ahead of it. Also, this is not really a problem with the movie. I think it's just more of a problem of my own expectations. But I love detective investigations in film, and the process of peeling back the layers and discovering the answer to this confounding, fucked up mystery. And you don't get as much of that as I wanted. They kind of do away with that at a certain point in the movie. But Longlegs, if you are a horror fan, you have got to see this. It is required viewing for sure. So check it out.
Yeah, I'm
watch Longlegs. This year continues to be a really, really strong contender for the horror genre.
Hell yeah.
I think this has been an interesting year for movies in general. It's been like what's done well has been kind of random, and then there's been a lot of good movies, but they've been weird. I just saw The Bike Riders, which has easily the best voices of any movie of the year so far.
I really like The Bike Riders,
dude.
I liked it a lot too.
That today.
Mama, I gotta get on my motorcycle. I gotta ride around now. Alexis?
Oz Perkins, he's the child of Anthony Perkins.
No shit.
Baby. Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
And he's also the guy from Legally Blonde.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm very familiar with Legally Blonde, so as soon as I saw him, I was just like, oh my god, that's that guy. He's I don't know. You can look it up. But yeah, I was like, that's wild. That he's also directing now, I guess.
I want to watch other stuff from him. Because people are saying this is his best film by far, but I still want to check out his other stuff.
Yeah, I started The Blackcoat's Daughter one night, which is kind of the earlier movie of his that a lot of people like, but I started it too late and fell asleep.
Is that with Kiernan Shipka or whatever?
Yeah, something like that.
I want to see Gretel and Hansel.
I have not heard good things about that one.
Yeah, I remember the advertising for that movie very clearly. It's one of those where I've never seen it, but I really remember
Jake,
the posters in the Regal.
I think you're thinking of Hansel and Gretel, the Jeremy Renner one.
Oh, that's
Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters.
I
think that's the one you're thinking
one
of.
Hansel and Gretel.
Yeah, there was one that was with kids that came out in 2020.
Okay, no, I'm definitely thinking of Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters.
Yeah, I know, dude. I know. I remember seeing that movie at Blockbuster.
That's the one where Gretel does a bunch of renovations on the gingerbread house, I think.
That's correct. Alexis, have you seen any films this past week?
Yeah, I actually had a triple feature. I went over to my friend's house. we wanted to do like a drinking like movie night, and so we were kind of like throwing out some ideas. Him and his wife had never seen Bottoms, and then his wife had never seen Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. So we watched Bottoms first, and then we watched Bodies, Bodies, Bodies afterwards. And then after all of that, we ended up throwing on The Holiday once we were really toasty.
I was really expecting you to say Shiva Baby, because like the common factor between those last two is Rachel Sennett. So you did throw me for a loop.
We wanted something like comforting, and for sure me and my friend, like his wife, we both really love The Holiday, like a comfort movie for us. So can I just say that I think Bottoms gets better every time that I watch it. This is the third time that I've seen it because I chose it for the 2023 in review.
Yeah.
And oh my God, that movie is so fun to play a drinking game to. Let me tell you, I will have to like post the rules or something because they were good.
Yeah,
they were excellent.
Put them on the Instagram.
Yeah, my friend's wife, she also made like this huge charcuterie board, and then like he was making us like drinks. Like we had like a New York sour, an amaretto sour, a gin fizz, like super fucking delicious. So, and we were using that and like some White Claws to like do the drinking games. And also Bodies, 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 you know, it's just, they're so dumb. It's so fun. Justice for Greg, Lee Pace's character, that poor guy.
Amen.
Yeah, that dude did not need to be there.
Just an older man stuck in a fucking mansion full of fucking Gen Z idiots. The worst. I
still don't think I'm over his death yet.
That was
You're still
horrible.
mourning Greg.
I'm mourning Greg.
Yeah, I mean,
he was great.
This
Greg
guy
was great.
was literally just like, he went to go lay down to do his exercises because he couldn't sleep. Like he circled the map because he wanted to make sure they were going to be safe in the hurricane or whatever, you know, like, I don't know. And then there's just like a bunch of fucking girls surrounded him with like knives and shit. And even then he's still trying to play it nice for a while, you know? Anyways, my poor fucking Pete Davidson's character bitch slaps the fuck out of him. I don't even think he bitch slaps. I think he punches him.
That is maybe my favorite aspect of that movie, is discovering how Pete Davidson died.
Yeah,
that was so
I also
fun.
love the Connor O'Malley jump scare at the end.
We love a Connor O'Malley jump scare on this podcast.
And also,
I don't know who Connor O'Malley is.
He's Justice Smith's boss at the like fun center I saw the TV Glow. He's the guy who you're introduced to when the door flies open and he's getting head at work.
Oh, okay. Is he Max at the end?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he shows up at the in like the last shot of Bodies, Bodies,
and
Bodies.
he's known for like
that.
deeply unhinged internet comedy. Kind of.
Yes, he is a demented and frightening man, and it's weird that he just kind of plays a guy in Bodies, Bodies, Bodies.
Yeah, I do like the delivery of the line. Oh my God, like your upper middle class line, I think is very funny.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So there were two rules that were just quotes that were trending audios on TikTok like a long time ago. You know, it's you're the murderer, and then the other one that is your parents are upper middle class. So fun. Okay, I just to reiterate though, Bottoms is like a 5-star movie for me now, because it's so rewatchable and it's so dumb fun, like. And there's just so many random things that, you know, like there's the guy in the cage, you know, there's the fucking posters all the time. I don't know. It's so much fun.
No, I do like
a blast.
That movie's mad funny.
Yeah, that movie did improve on a second watch for me.
Like, I do definitely.
I think it's very jarring in a way.
I mean, I just like probably do still like Shiva Baby better, but I think Bottoms is like, in terms of like the speed of good jokes, kind of unmatched in terms of like recent comedies.
Yeah. Jeff. Well, do we have anything else?
I have nothing going on elsewise with movies.
let's hop right out of it because we got a lot to get to. All right, and we are at our next big topic of Blockbuster Month.
Oh my God!
Cue
what
the
a
explosions.
month it has been.
It has been quite a month. We've really been existing in the Don Simpson, Jerry Bruckheimer zone.
Oh yeah, this is like the Bruckheimer month, really.
Yeah.
Not complaining at all. I mean, that makes perfect sense.
Very positive. But I thought for this episode, we could discuss briefly actors who have had successful career pivots. People who started out being known for kind of one type of movie and pivoted into doing another. Now, Mick, you said that you had something.
Yeah. Well, earlier you were talking about Waterboy. I have a problem with Adam Sandler.
Them's fighting words.
Yeah, I know, because it's funny because Adam Sandler fans are a very devout fan base, and I realized the more I basically go through exposure therapy to Mr. Sandler, it's not so much him, it's the Happy Madison like aura.
It's the movies that he produces.
Yes, it's the Happy Madison machine that that I struggle with. Now, there are some classic comedies that he's done that, of course, I adore. 50 First Dates, The Wedding Singer, all of the cliches. But when you watch,
say Hubie Halloween,
when you watch things like Uncut Gems. And I don't even know if that counts necessarily as a career pivot, because if anything, it's more of a career sabbatical in regards to Adam Sandler, because he still, makes good money doing his Happy Madison stuff. But yeah, when he works with PTA, with Punch Drunk Love, or with the Safdies for Uncut Gems, It's fantastic. And wasn't he on I know this is not, the TV majors, but didn't he do a TV show recently that was was basketball themed or something like that?
Hustle,
but I remember
which was a movie and was actually pretty good.
Yeah, Hustle was a movie that came out in 2022, which was
even more relevant.
Distributed by Happy Madison.
Yeah,
so there you go, twist. But yeah, he's
Sandler.
I've enjoyed his breaks from that, because it's interesting for him, because it's not like the moneymaker, and it shows that he's sitting on an actor's talent, and yet he chooses to wield it only when he decides to. But in that way, it's frustrating.
What's fascinating about Sandler, though, is we were talking about this in regards to The Waterboy, is a lot of his most really questionable, arguably dog shit movies. You will meet a lot of people who will tell you with a completely straight face how Waterboy is a top 5 comedy of all time and actively a classic. I'm not saying I agree with it. If anything, I actively disagree with it. But it is kind of fascinating how many people I know who are oh no, all of his movies that I think most of us would consider bad and arguably prison time worthy, they're no, these are great comedies and awesome, and I go to see every one of them.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating.
Well, thinking of an actor who kind of did the reverse Sandler, going drama to comedy, Leslie Nielsen is another person who I think of, because he...
Great example.
Started out doing disaster movies and dramas, and then was cast in Airplane and pivoted to being one of our great comedy stars.
He was the ship captain in the original Poseidon Adventures, and then he ended up just being in screwball comedies for the rest of his career, and God bless him.
I know
That's
a
a good
place
pick.
with really great Viking food.
Yeah.
Also, another Naked Gun star, O.J. Simpson, pivoted from being an actor to murdering his ex-wife. So
Allegedly. Allegedly.
I'm sorry. You're right.
The juice is
Zach,
eternally loose
The
now.
glove did not fit.
I'm sorry. You're right. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said anything. I apologize.
I was going to bring up Zac Efron. I think has kind of done an interesting, sort of teen
That's a good
heartthrob to adult comedy to then with Iron Claw is seemingly kind of doing more drama again.
Yeah, no,
But I think that
that's
dude's had an interesting career trajectory.
Yeah, I think that's a good pull because I feel like he kind of attempted that pivot to drama a couple of times, and it finally he kind of found the right project with the Iron Claw. Because, he was in that Ted Bundy movie a few years back.
Oh, right. I forgot about that.
It's not good.
Well, because it also, focused on the least interesting part of
I
Ted
kinda
Bundy,
liked
which
it.
is the fact that he had a wife.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, it was
He was
thought
just
Zac
so good.
Efron.
He was
I thought
good
Zac
in it.
Efron was good in the movie, but I thought that the movie kind of stunk.
Well, the whole thing with Ted Bundy, also in retrospect, is just how in that time frame, if you were an average-looking white dude who looked kind of clean-cut, people would 100% believe whatever you're doing was above the board always.
That is correct.
That is how society works. And that's
Alexis, is there anyone you can think of?
What's so funny is that I did all my research and then went back to read the question again, and I realized that I misread the question the first time.
So what did you research, Alexis?
Yeah, what did you study for?
This is actually more interesting than the big topic.
Okay, so Alan Rickman originally did a graphic design company with a bunch of his friends and then decided that he wanted to pursue acting.
Oh. Or how Harrison Ford used to be a carpenter and then became an actor.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
You researched jobs
Or-
that actors did before acting.
I mean, that technically
Samuel L.
counts.
Jackson. Samuel L. Jackson was a social worker before he became an actor.
These are also
What?
career pivots. Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Ava DuVernay worked in PR.
Not an actor, but cool.
Not an actor, but actor adjacent because she's a really good director.
Oh, wow.
Tight.
Well, Alexis,
Yeah.
once again, our finest film critic, doing the work,
Doing the
boots to the
work.
ground.
heavy
We love
lifting.
it.
Oh! Cameron Diaz was a model before she starred in any
That
comedies.
doesn't count.
Now that I find hard to believe.
Sylvester Stallone did porn before.
That's true. He was a
did?
sex worker.
Yeah.
He
Good
was
for him.
trying to get.
I'm not
He was
joking.
trying to have money
No,
so
I'm
he could be an actor. I think that was incidental.
Yeah, technically that is acting. So,
I have two.
what are your two?
Hold on tight, Spider Monkey. Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart
Yeah.
from Twilight fame.
True.
And, they had been doing things before that. But going from teen heartthrobs who were pretty universally kind of derided as being not good actors because of that franchise, then
Which is
ended
bullshit.
up fucking pulling the roots out from underneath everybody and ended up starting both completely fascinating and impressive auteur careers. And honestly, when you pitched this because you said favorite career pivots for actors, so I wanted to think of who are some in other words, who are some actors that maybe I wasn't super hot on, and now when I see them announced in something, there's a pretty solid chance that I'm going to just watch it. So when Kristen Stewart shows up in a trailer for something, or when Robert Pattinson shows up in a Deadline headline that he has been cast in something, I am now pretty faithfully going to go see it because they just keep working with tremendous filmmakers in doing fascinating roles. Like just this year, speaking of, in what's going on, we were talking about great horror films. Kristen Stewart was in Love Lies Bleeding.
That's a horror film?
Not really.
I mean, it's horror.
It has body horror
adjacent
elements.
Okay, I haven't seen it. So.
Good movie.
It's worth checking out. But yeah, those are two career pivots that I admire. I think it's fantastic. I mean, Robert Pattinson's going to work with Bong Joon-ho soon.
I was just talking to Jake about how I should never put movies on a most anticipated list because when I do, they get delayed.
Yeah, because you had Horizon American Saga Part 2 on your most anticipated.
Absolutely, dude. Totally.
Yeah, dude. That was all you, Zach. Had nothing to do with me demanding that the studios get rid of everything right now. Wipe the memory cards. Delete.
Yeah, it is interesting how last episode Mick was bemoaning the release of Horizon An American Saga Part 1, and then days later, the second part got pulled from theaters. The influence of this show.
And not only that, what did I say? I said bring back Marvel movies, and what happened the day after the new trailer dropped for the new Captain America movie starring Harrison Ford as the Red Hulk? Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, we are so bad.
You guys forgot that Giancarlo Esposito is also in it as George Washington Bridge.
Hell yeah, brother. This all sounds like gold.
He's a character named George Washington Bridge, which, as someone on Twitter put it, it's like, when you're getting to not like the, I kind of recognize this guy from comics, but I maybe saw this guy once in like the Marvel character atlas I had as a kid. That's how you know they're like scraping the bottom of the barrel with this shit at this point.
I refuse to believe that George Washington Bridge is a real character.
It also makes it seem like he was named after the George Washington Bridge, not like the dude George Washington.
That's like naming a character the Abraham Lincoln Tunnel. Like that's done. That's just the thing that exists in New York.
Alexis, you look like you have a question.
I really thought that this was a bit when it started, like when he said
Alexis, we're just
Ford
back.
And the Red Hulk.
No, Alexis,
I was like, that's
just
hilarious.
Back.
Why would
healing.
Harrison Ford do a Marvel movie? Like, wasn't he so happy to be free of his fucking Star Wars bullshit? Yeah, I guess so.
He crashed another plane.
You know that's going to be the most hilariously phoned-in performance of all time,
there's an incredible...
Do you know what? I love Harrison Ford's phoned-in
Oh, I agree 100% with you.
There's an incredible Anthony Mackie interview. There's like 2 interviews where you can see him like adjust the narrative of working with Harrison Ford, because he was like, yeah, it's great working with him. Every day he'd come to set and go, let's make this piece of shit. And then in the next interview, he said, yeah, he'd come to set and be like, let's make this shit. It's like, your story has changed, buddy. Well, one other career pivot that I want to bring up, which I think will provide a nice segue into the films we're talking about, is the career of Liam Neeson. Liam Neeson kind of was a fairly respected dramatic actor. And in the past decade or so, has pivoted to being an action star after starring in Taken. And you know who else kind of pulled a similar move of being a, Academy Award-winning, respected actor to becoming one of the biggest action stars of a decade is Nicolas Cage. Now, we are going to be discussing the first Nicolas Cage action movie, 1996's The Rock, directed by Michael Bay, co-starring Sean Connery, Ed Harris, Michael Biehn, and others. And we are going to be talking the next action movie that he made after The Rock, which is Simon West's Con Air, which also stars John Cusack, John Malkovich, Steve Buscemi, Danny Trejo, Ving Rhames, Dave Chappelle. It's a crazy cast on that one. So what would we like to start with? And you know what? Let's start with going around. Jake, what was your relationship to both of these movies?
So I had never seen The Rock before about 2 hours ago. And then Con Air was a movie I'd seen a while ago and had remembered being kind of insane. But I definitely, and I'd always, it was, definitely the kind of insane I liked, and I was hyped to watch it again, and it was great. I still love it as a film, but, it is, truly insane how racist that film is. I'm sure we'll circle back around to this, but, it is, truly a film that couldn't be made today, and it's, kind of shocking that it was made in 1996.
1997 on Con Air. Yeah. Mick, please.
My relationship to these films. I did not grow up with either of these movies. In fact, memory might be betraying me, but I believe Zach was the one that introduced me to the first of these two, which is The Rock. I had been aware of it. I had seen the posters since I was a kid, but I don't think I'd ever actually watched The Rock until Zach gave me that, weird kind of molesty side eye that he gives you.
I don't know what you're talking about.
This
and
is
I'm
a
hurt
visual
that you
medium,
describe it like
but
that.
He does this thing where he just kind of looks at you from the side and he does this weird smile and he goes, we should watch The Rock. And so I watched it. And then as
You're
for
welcome.
Con Air, I watched Con Air, I think, God, I must have been in my mid-20s when I finally watched it. And for the first time, this is true, actually, I went to a party. It was like a movie party. And I watched Con Air on VHS along with another movie on VHS, Face Off, which is another 1990s Nicolas Cage-led film.
Okay, I'm just going to lay this out now. Face Off came out a week after Con Air.
Which is insane to think about. But
Can you imagine?
Crazy.
I had never seen either of those films before. And so Con Air and Face Off happened to me in the same night. And so, yeah, I don't have a deep connection with these movies, but they are I think of them so fondly. They are a special concoction of gonzo, just blockbuster, and it's so good that we're covering these movies, because when I think blockbuster, and it is Blockbuster Month, these two titles definitely pillars of the genre to me.
Alexis?
I feel like Con Air was probably one of those movies that was randomly on TNT or TBS or something every once in a while.
Yep.
So I feel like I saw it a few times growing up. I definitely haven't seen it since before, I don't know, at least since high school probably. So that was, it's bonkers for sure. That shit's crazy. And then The Rock, I'd never seen it. As soon as you said it was directed by Michael Bay, I kept my hopes low to the ground. And I guess I can talk about that later.
All right. Well, I will wrap up with saying that The Rock, I think, was in heavier rotation when I was a kid. That was... if you were watching Con Air on TNT, Alexis, I was watching The Rock. That is a Pat Harris, my father. That is a favorite of his. He definitely showed that to me, also on a VHS.
I'm so sorry, Mr. Harris.
It's a good movie. And Con Air, I probably got out of Blockbuster at some time as well. Didn't watch it as much, but between the two movies... at least narratively, and in terms of some of the dialogue, I would say is maybe the crazier movie. But yeah, where do we want to start? Do we want to start with The Rock, or do we want to start with Con Air?
I think we could, if there's no objections, we could just go in chronological order in terms of their theatrical release date. We could start with The Rock.
All right, Alexis, I want to hear your feelings.
Well, You know how I feel about Michael Bay's Ambulance. I do not love it. I don't rate things low on Letterboxd that often because I feel like I don't really watch a lot of movies that I know I'm not going to probably like. You know, it's an action movie. It's got booms. Which Michael Bay loves those. He loves the explosions.
He loves to make shit explode.
I think you're the first person that's noticed this.
I don't know. It was just like, I don't know. The very beginning of it was very interesting. The dialogue was like weirdly snappy, but also weird.
He's a Beatlemaniac.
He is a Beatlemaniac.
Yeah. He was a very interesting character. I think, like, at the very beginning, I was like, okay, I guess this is interesting. And then, like, as it went on, I was like, okay, all right, well, they're doing things. I don't know. I was actually talking to my... I would probably... I'm so sorry, Mr. Harris, but I would probably give it, like, a 2.5. Probably like the same thing that I gave to fucking Ambulance.
That's that's so whack on both.
I just stopped kind of paying attention after a while. I think that's what happened. It's so long. That's my problem with Michael Bay is like all of his movies are so much longer than I want them to be.
I'm actually going to back Alexis up a little bit here. I definitely liked The Rock more than she did, but I would agree towards the end there, I felt like it was dragging a bit. Like, it felt like kind of the sort of what's going to happen action stuff got a little drawn out towards the end.
You know what? I'm going to piggyback onto the piggyback and say that I prefer The Rock to Con Air. There's so much I like about this movie, but even when I look at the runtime, I go, holy shit. How are we still here? Why is this so
There's a lot
long?
to get done. There's a lot to do on The Rock. You have to do a whole car chase through San Francisco.
Don't get me
there
wrong.
are many things that have to be done. We have to go find Sean Connery's lost treasure at the end. There are many things that must be accomplished. Yeah, no, I tend to agree that Michael Bay does not need to be out here making over 2-hour movies every single time.
Yet he does. He always has long films.
But
my dad loves Pearl Harbor, and that movie's long as fuck.
I've never seen Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, I don't think you need to. I mean, I will say that the actual, like, siege on Pearl Harbor section of the movie is really fucking good.
Yes, that's what's so frustrating about it. It's actually a great World War II film that just has love shit happening in it, and I don't like it. But
yeah, like I said, you know, his movies are too long. It's too long on the beginning and the tail end. Like the middle, where's the meat of the actual skirmish is great.
Well, also, like, I can't imagine a filmmaker worse suited to making a love story than Michael Bay, a man who hates people with a passion. I guess he does love the troops, which is a very funny aspect of this movie.
I think that's what I don't like about it.
This is... I love how the bad guys in this movie are military guys. But the real bad guys in this movie are the bureaucrats.
Hold on. Before, I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here because, listeners, if you have not seen Michael Bay's The Rock, we should describe exactly what it is. And I have the synopsis pulled up right here. So, according to Google, The Rock is about an FBI chemical warfare expert, Stanley Godspeed, played by Nicolas Cage. And he is sent on an urgent mission with a former British spy, John Patrick Mason, played by Sean Connery, to stop General Francis X. Hummel, played by Ed Harris, the bad guy, from launching chemical weapons on Alcatraz Island into San Francisco. General Hummel demands $100 million in war reparations to be paid to the families of slain servicemen who died on covert operations. After their SEAL team is wiped out, spoiler, Stanley and John deal with the soldiers on their own. Which is more or less...
yeah, that pretty much nailed it. They watched The Rock.
Yeah.
They watched The Rock. Although I don't like that they call Stanley Godspeed, Nicolas Cage, an FBI chemical warfare expert, because I like to think of him as the gas man.
I like to think of him as a chemical super freak, actually.
Yeah, he's just the gas man. Gas is his thing. Gas is his name. Gas is his game. This is the thing that I really treasure about The Rock, and frankly, I treasure about Ambulance as well, is this movie has a perfect Michael Bay leading man. A guy who can bring the energy to fucking 11, but who is not going to, like, sell out the premise of the movie. Like, I do not feel a wink from Nicolas Cage at any point during this film's runtime, yet he is delivering lines that are absolutely fucking insane and, like, cranking his fucking energy up to match the tone of a Michael Bay movie, and I think it really fucking works. Like, I think that's kind of what's missing from the Transformers movies for me, or one of the things, is I don't think Shia LaBeouf is a very compelling presence and can really match the vibe of a Michael Bay movie.
What about Mark Wahlberg, though?
I haven't seen the Mark Wahlberg ones, Jake. And
let me tell you, they get much better after the third one.
Oh, excellent. I'm so glad. I can't wait to watch The Age of Extinction and The Last Night. But yeah, I think that Nick Cage and Jake Gyllenhaal as well are like two dudes who are very suited to be in Michael Bay movies.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I prefer Godspeed. His character between the two films we're covering today. I really like Nicolas Cage in this. I like a fish out of water scenario.
I don't know. I like Nicolas Cage in Con Air a lot too.
He's great in Con Air. It's just the character.
Put the button down.
I like his character more in The Rock, and that's just because, yeah, as I said, it's just to throw someone in this situation who's initially reluctant. Like, there's this great scene that after Sean Connery's character crushes a baddie with this giant, like, it looks like an AC machine, and it drops on him, and then his dead body of the goon just kind of keeps twitching, and Nicolas Cage, his character, he's trying to, like, defuse this missile, and he just can't focus, because should bodies keep twitching like that? Is that a normal thing? Just tell me yes or no. Like, I like that he is just thrown into this thing, and he sort of reluctantly has to overcome these increasingly death-defying obstacles, like where he decides, like, oh, I have to steal this Ferrari and chase a Humvee and a trolley through the streets of San Francisco. It's all good shit. So yeah, I would agree with you, Zach, that he's well suited to a Michael Bay film.
He's the right man for the job. Also, Sean Connery is a guy who maybe I don't necessarily think is like an incredible actor, but that dude has just like screen presence for fucking days. Notoriously prickly and hard to work with on this shoot, but also Michael Bay relayed a pretty great story of him coming to bat for this movie.
I've heard this story. Yeah.
Yeah, so this movie, like many a Michael Bay movie, was extremely expensive and got a couple days behind, and Touchstone, which was an arm of Disney, sent some guys to the set to essentially chew Michael Bay out. And Sean Connery was like, "Would you like me to talk to them, boy?" And Michael Bay was like, "Oh, yeah, if you would." And apparently, like, Michael Bay walked into the room with the two Disney guys, and then Sean Connery walks in behind him and goes, "This boy's doing a great job, and we need more fucking money." And the Disney guys were like, "Oh, yes, of course, Mr. Connery." And they cut off Michael Bay's back.
Well, at that point, hasn't Sean Connery already been, like, wasn't he a Bond man?
Yes, he was the first James Bond. He was...
he was like a Hollywood legend at this point.
Yeah, at that point, he
was Bond in the 1960s.
This movie is led by 2 Academy Award winners, I'm realizing. Because at this point, Connery had won his Oscar for The Untouchables, which is a funny movie to win an Oscar for.
What is...
It's an Al Capone movie where he delivers the line, "Just like a wop, bringing a knife to a gunfight." But yeah, also I've heard it theorized that this is sneakily a Bond sequel, which I could get on board with. I don't know how we feel about this or if we fundamentally care, but I thought it was worth bringing up.
I feel like
that's interesting.
Like, I feel like it's not really, aside from Sean Connery being
a British Secret Service agent who disappeared in the 60s.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know that it matters that much.
How do we feel about that? So listeners, we're talking about the reason that he has been locked up and the key has been thrown away, and he's been imprisoned without trial, which is why he is so you can't trust him, because he's out to get America, because he's an SAS officer for the United Kingdom who is caught stealing this microfilm that contains America's deepest and darkest secrets. Like,
I love this.
Area 51, the Roswell landings. Who killed JFK? And he was caught trying to go across the border into Canada, which that right there is just a funny scenario to me. And yeah, and they don't go into that really anymore. Like,
no, they just casually confirm that aliens did land at Roswell, and they move on.
Yeah, because maybe we're jumping ahead a little bit, but since we're on the topic, the end of the film. So after he gives Nicolas Cage's character a note that says, go to Kansas and go to the St. Michael's Church and
do the ending of the Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah, no, it is the Shawshank Redemption, but goofy.
Yes, it's Michael Bay's Shawshank Redemption, and also involving a prison
movie.
And it ends with Nicolas Cage and his wife, who has tremendous screen presence and charisma. And it ends with them in this really weird old 1940s car that's a hunk of shit, and they're driving away, and it kind of reminds me of Raising Arizona a little bit, and we all know that Michael Bay is a huge fan of the Coen brothers.
Some reason.
But yeah, the movie ends with him looking at through the microfilm with like a little lens, going, "Honey, do you want to know who killed JFK?" And then it goes to the end credits. So what is his end game here? So he saves the day. He saves San Francisco. He does the good thing of helping Sean Connery get away by faking his death so he can live under the radar for the rest of his life, just like he wanted to be as a free man. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to steal the secrets that they imprisoned Sean Connery for 40 years. And what is he going to do with it? Is that just like, is he going to sell it now? Is now he going to commit an act of treason?
I think
it's supposed to be ambiguous. But again,
excuse me.
That is technically the correct answer.
Mick, great art leaves you asking questions.
Well, again, I think also this thing about this scene that you need to kind of get the full picture here is that he runs out of this church being chased from the pastor, I don't know, fucking Three Stooges or something, but he's dressed like Ace Ventura. Like, he has, like, an insane, like, Hawaiian shirt on over a wife beater.
Him and his girl are fucking freaks. You just know.
They match each other's freak for real.
Yeah, I got a text from Alexis earlier today. Just a few lines that she enjoyed from this film. Whoa, hey, marriage police, pull over. And then when they're having sex, she goes, do you like my pigtails? Naughty.
It's great.
Just the delivery of the naughty just sent me fucking. Yeah. I couldn't. And then, okay, can I deliver this one? Because I am
Alexis,
Catholic.
you have to.
She says, I'm Catholic and I'm pregnant. This causes a serious problem for me. And as somebody who was raised in the church, that shit was hella fucking funny because they just fucked, like, while she has, like, pigtails in her hair and he's calling her naughty, and then she's like, I'm Catholic and pregnant. You have to marry me. Otherwise this is a problem. And I'm just like, girl, that is not your biggest problem.
I mean, her main character trait is, like, being, like, Italian coded, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I was like, I don't know. She has other problems because he's ordering $600 LPs to his work because he can't order them to the house.
They sound better than CDs.
And he's a Beatlemaniac.
I'm sure they do. Can't afford to do that now that he's got a baby on the way.
Also, why is that scene in the movie?
To establish that he's a Beatlemaniac.
I just want to give a shout out.
It comes up later. It plays deeply into his character.
I want to give a shout out to the set design of their rooftop sex pad that they have in Washington, D.C. The next time, listeners, you're getting down and dirty with your lover, just remind yourself, are you doing it correctly? Because if you don't have 1,000 candles lit, you are failing at romance. You need to do better.
Yep.
Because holy shit, if there's anything that screams visually love making, it is 1,000 candles. Like, it took them 10 times longer to light all of those candles than it must have taken for them to have sex. And I respect that.
I feel like you are underestimating how long Nicolas Cage goes for.
Candles.
That's true. He is a Beatlemaniac.
Cowgirl, pigtails. That's all you need. That's romance right there, baby.
You need to be softly playing Rocket Man. Which sets up...
You are the Rocket Man.
Sets up one of the greatest one-liners in any movie, where Nicolas Cage really does a long setup.
Yeah, it's a reach.
Yeah, he's like, all right, I feel like we got off on the wrong foot. My name's Stanley. I like, what kind of music do you like? Do you like Elton John? And then Tony Todd, who plays Candyman, goes, nah, I don't like any of that soft shit. And then Nicolas Cage goes, oh, well, that's interesting because it's about you. You're the Rocket Man. And then launches a rocket into him.
Okay, that's where I recognized him from. I was like, I know this man. Where do I know him from? It's Candyman. Yeah. Okay.
If there was one line that you know was reverse engineered, it's that one. They had the punchline. How do we get to it's you? You're the Rocket Man.
I think that's why we establish him as a Beatlemaniac, actually, Jake, is so we can get to that he likes classic rock. We don't want to make it too obvious. We don't want to have it be Elton John in the first scene. Then we softly play Rocket Man during the sex scene. So by the time we get to him launching a rocket into Tony Todd and saying, it's you, you're the Rocket Man, it feels natural, because that's just good, clean storytelling.
That is exactly how that actually happened. I would bet my life on it.
Real quick side note here, just because I need to bring this up because I just found this out, is one of the dudes on Alcatraz was played by an American character actor named Tom Towles.
Yeah, Tom Towles.
How's it going? My name's Tom Towles. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Mr. Towles.
Mr. Towles, your table is waiting.
Alexis, you had something.
One of my favorite moments was when Sean Connery is maybe gonna dip from the scene to like swim out or whatever, and Nicolas Cage is just like shouting at him, and then Sean Connery's like walking away, and he's like, a sniper's gonna get him for sure. That's what's gonna happen. And I don't know, I always love like an older man being like a really like, this fucking youngster doesn't know shit. I gotta get the fuck out of here. Would you
say that? Would you say that you enjoy, when that sort of attitude develops into kind of a grudging respect and like a brotherly bond through the crucible of some sort of an action scenario?
I don't know, because I kept blacking out while I was watching this movie.
The thing for me that like really does elevate Michael Bay to kind of a tier above in action filmmaking is his movies do look really fucking good. Like there are shots from The Rock that I remember, and like it's funny because I feel like the two people who have talked about Michael Bay on the internet the most are Patrick Willems and Lindsay Ellis. And both of them, sort of their argument for taking Michael Bay seriously as like an artist and like an auteur is that, other directors who make, blockbuster quote unquote schlock, you cannot like recognize their style. And funnily enough, one of the people they give as an example is Simon West, who directed Con Air. And I do think that that's true, because like Con Air is a movie that I really fucking adore, and I think in a lot of ways has some more insane juice than The Rock. But this movie just looks so fucking good. The shots are so dynamic, and like the set design as well. I love the contraption below Alcatraz.
Yeah, there's like a lot of weird, insane shit going on in Alcatraz this movie. There's like the weird like fire shooting, stomping contraption. There's like the weird like Temple of Doom-esque minecart machine below Alcatraz.
That was kind of cool.
It is.
No, it was cool, but they just like have weird Rube Goldberg shit going on beneath Alcatraz for some reason.
But that's the Michael Bay juice, is like if it looks awesome, it's in the movie. Logic be damned.
Like when he was rolling like on time for the
through the contraption
and shit.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? I was like, what? Why is this on Alcatraz? I'm so confused right now.
Doesn't matter.
I will say, while I do find Michael Bay, there's a part of his films that drive me crazy, which is just the sort of the boyish exhilaration that happens within it. Like I can totally picture all of these really intense scenes within his movies being completely faithfully reenacted on a playground with 6th grade boys. Like that's the energy and the intelligence and the intellectualism that he brings to his film. Like, for example, when the gas leaks out of that doll in the gas chamber in the beginning of the film, like everyone's acting, everyone's just throwing out this jargon and spinning dials and pushing buttons, and it's like kids on a playground. And that can be kind of annoying, and it's why I don't like Armageddon. Having said that, to the point that Zach is making, in terms of his mastery, and I will use that term mastery of it being a visual medium and how to communicate ideas.
You're
again, not to repeat what's already been said, but he got his start on commercials. And in a commercial, you have got to communicate an idea that hits you intellectually and emotionally within 30 seconds at most. So you have to know how to communicate ideas. And his ability to do that visually and to do it also through action, which, you know, there's a term that is thrown around a lot in film discourse, which is which is Bayhem. Michael Bay, Mayhem. It's just he is known for these huge gonzo explosions, these huge action sequences, and yet I think where a lot of people that try to replicate his stuff go wrong is Michael Bay is able to capture all of this absolutely almost incomprehensibly complex, just crazy effects, and yet you can still follow what is happening from frame to frame. And his ability to capture so much within a frame is absolutely impressive.
Yeah, and I don't think that he like similar to Tony Scott, who we talked about earlier this month, like, I don't think that Michael Bay action scenes are like necessarily have like a great sense of geography, but I still think that you can follow them on like an emotional level because he is just throwing like so much information at you and so many like genuinely really beautiful shots at you that it kind of works in spite of all of the chaos that's happening. Also, he does own sneakers that say Bayhem on them.
You know, speaking of beautiful, iconic shots, something that I actually feel a little bit betrayed, but movie magic. The famous shot, you know, when I think of The Rock, what I think of is the end of the film when Nicolas Cage's character has lit the green flares. And he drops to his knees and he's flailing them and he holds them straight up into the air, side to side, and you get this beautiful shot of Nicolas Cage from behind, and you see the Golden Gate Bridge in the distance, and surprise, surprise, it's golden hour, because all of his movies take place at golden hour, and I love that. You have the sunset in the distance, the Golden Gate Bridge behind him, and these 5 F-18 jets just fly straight by him symmetrically, and it fills the frame.
God, he's getting to talk about vehicles again. You son of a bitch.
But here's the crazy thing, and I did not know this until doing a little bit of research for this episode. That's not Nicolas Cage. That's a stand-in. That was a pickup they got when they were cutting it together for the effects. They didn't get a shot from behind of Nicolas Cage. And to me, the most iconic image of the entire film is a Nicolas Cage lookalike holding flares, and the jets come over him. That blows my mind.
Movie magic.
Movie magic. That's insane.
Yeah, I would agree though that those are the best shots in the film by far, though. Like, I don't know, there's a few when he's falling there and it does like the shot like from below him looking up at the sky and shit that I thought were sick.
You also get the like classic Michael Bay like
the rotating
circular dolly track with Nicolas Cage standing up into frame, which is the best version of that because it's Nicolas Cage standing up into frame.
It has to be on a long lens. You have to have something in the background to give it some kind of depth of focus there so you can get some reference. But oh my God, when you do that, he does it in every single one of his movies, and I absolutely adore it.
Yeah, it's a cool shot. It's like a difficult shot to pull off. Again, if Michael Bay were like an incompetent fucking hack, he wouldn't think of shit like that. He's got the juice, Alexis.
I literally was looking at his filmography and I realized this is only the 3rd Michael Bay movie I've ever seen in my life.
Wait, okay.
Up until I saw Ambulance in theaters like 2 years ago, the only Michael Bay movie I'd ever seen was Pearl Harbor.
Right.
Well, interestingly, this The Rock has a very small claim to fame as being the only Michael Bay directed film that has a certified fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Not Pain and Gain?
Not Ambulance?
I learned that may be an old statistic, but as far as I know, I don't think any of his other films are not considered.
Ambulance 68% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh,
sir.
really?
That's fresh.
That's insane
because that's a good fucking movie. Good movie. It rules. It's got the juice.
No,
we all know it.
He's better with helicopter shots,
just-
not with drone shots.
Wait, do you
He's so
not-
good with drone
Nick,
shots.
Do you not like Ambulance?
Yeah,
either?
he's a fucking doubter.
Really? I like Ambulance.
I
Like,
fucking
I don't like
hated
Ambulance.
Ambulance.
now the drone shots go insane in that.
Yeah, they go silly mode.
And like also the California Dreamin'
that's
mic
what
drop in that is one of the best mic drops I've seen in a movie like maybe ever.
You're goddamn
Here's
right.
the thing. All of my probably favorite movies have mostly quiet, stationary, very auteur type of like deep
You
work.
could be an auteur
and-
when you move the camera. Michael Bay is.
Okay, doesn't matter.
Have you seen Pain and Gain, Alexis?
This shit just pops off, and it's too much for me. I think I'm like sensory overwhelmed by Michael Bay.
Alexis, watch Pain and Gain. It's probably my favorite movie of his, and I think it's like the most tame in terms of some Michael Bay elements.
It is not an
I've heard
action
that one's
movie.
kind of good.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I think that's probably where I might find, because like I said, like I like parts of Pearl Harbor. Like obviously it has like a lot of fucking flaws, but like I like parts of it, you know. And I admit that like he shot it fucking well.
Which is ironic because the parts that I think, Alexis, you like the most are not the stationary, quiet, auteur parts.
Yeah, but it's World War II and it's different because
I feel like we're not using. I feel like we're not using the word auteur appropriately here. Auteur just means that you're a director with a vision and a distinct style that you can find in all of your work.
When I think of my favorite auteurs, I think of fucking like my Pride and Prejudice, Joe Wright, and Atonement type of shit, you know? Like it's very different. Very
well. We like different kinds of auteurs, but I will not take away Michael Bay's auteur status.
Exactly. Also, I am upset that we don't get to see more of Sean Connery's daughter because she's really pretty and she's in the movie Meet Joe Black with
You wanted
Brad Pitt, and she's good in it.
When she didn't meet Joe, oh my god! Talk about a fucking insane movie from the 90s.
It kind of feels
That's
like
the funniest movie
I
death
love that movie
ever put
but
to
I think
film.
actually, but I think it's mostly because of the music. Which, by the way, that was another thing that I texted you guys about. There was this moment in the first third of the movie where like I started hearing the music underneath, and I was like, "This is really close to the Pirates of the Caribbean, like, I don't know, main theme." There was just like a little section and I was like, this is Hans Zimmer. And then I went to check and of course it was Hans Zimmer.
No, I pointed that out too. There's like weirdly two sections of the score, one of which sounds almost exactly like Pirates of the Caribbean, and one of which sounds a lot like the Shire theme from the Lord of the Rings movies towards the end. There's like a few tracks which do really kind of sound like other famous scores of movies that came out after.
I feel like the kind of Pirates sounding score, Hans Zimmer has like been messing with that in many different movies, because I feel like Gladiator as well is that a Hans Zimmer score? Gladiator?
I think so.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I feel like Gladiator also kind of has that sound. As does the Muppet Treasure Island score a little bit, which is also Hans Zimmer. He's been cooking that one for a while, and then let his protege
Really all came together with Pirates.
Let his protege do the first Pirates movie, and then when it was successful, was like, yeah, no, I'm taking that one back.
LOL.
Well, do we have anything else on The Rock?
Yes.
Good.
Alexis, take it away.
I think I'm not used to Nick Cage being in an action movie and being, dare I say, as tame almost as this. Like, he's not the level of like unhinged that like I like Face Off, you know, like so unhinged. Like I'm so just like used to kind of that as my like, I don't know, like my rating scale. So I don't know. It was so weird just seeing him go from, I don't know, I guess what his characterization was of like this almost kind of a little nerdy because he does like the bomb stuff and he's a Beatlemaniac, you know, but then he is getting a little like
he is a Beatlemaniac.
zany, you know. Yeah, so that was, I think maybe it felt inconsistent, but mostly because I think I probably had some like expectation of Nick Cage being like Nick Cage, you know?
Yeah. No, I feel like Nick Cage is a man with range. You know, he can do more naturalistic. He can play a more traditional leading man, but he can also play Castor Troy, and I think that's beautiful. I do think
also
it's
play Longlegs. Still in theaters.
I'm going in a couple days. Nobody say anything else. Yeah, no, I also think it's just very funny. Jake, you brought up Pain and Gain. That's I feel like that movie is kind of the prime example of how much Michael Bay loves the Coen brothers, because that's kind of like a Coen type story in that it's like about dumb shit criminals. And like you can see that in this movie as well, because he, you know, casts Nick Cage and has talked about how he cast him because he loves Raising Arizona so much. Like he has packed his movies with Coen guys.
Yeah, John Turturro, Francis McDormand. He's always casting like people from their wheelhouse, which is fascinating. But speaking of casting, so Zach, I like what you've said about how Nicolas Cage is able to match the energy required of leading a Bayhem film. But something that we often give him credit for is that he brings an emotional sincerity to every one of his roles, no matter how outlandish and I hesitate to use the word exaggerated, but exaggerated his performances might be. You know, some people
bring truth to stuff that's not like traditional naturalism.
Exactly. Yeah. We you know, a lot of people say that, oh, actually, he's not that great an actor. I'm not a big Nicolas Cage fan, but yeah, his acting style is very interesting because he does bring that emotional truth to it. And I think another actor in this troupe of a huge cast, it's full of so many that guys that I want to give a shout out to in a bit. But another actor that I think really grounds this film, that I think doesn't get enough credit, is Ed Harris as General Francis X. Hummel. He really does a really good job of playing this angry, betrayed veteran type character, and he has a really ridiculous goal. And he even kind of comments on, like, look, hey, we asked for $100 million, otherwise we're going to basically, you know, blow up San Francisco with this VX nerve gas, and they called our bluff. This was the plan was to always like escape. But he grounds it a little bit. Like when he's talking about his fallen heroes and it gets all red, white, and blue and waving the flag in my fucking face. If you're going to do that, you're going to cast Ed Harris, because he brings a sincerity to it that I absolutely buy. He brings an emotional weight to it that I think serves as an anchor that this really wacky story needs to work. Okay.
So to comment on that, though, I thought the whole like scene where the president or whoever was talking about like was it the CIA guy or who?
It was the president talking about how we've like let down our veterans.
Talking like Reagan, talking about how we let down our veterans or whatever. I thought was like a little bit too much out of like kind of funny patriotism to sort of like gross patriotism for me. And also there's just something about the fact that this is after Desert Storm makes it like extra insane, because it's like notoriously like the one war in the past 100 years we've like won easily and in like a month or whatever.
Yeah.
So like the idea of like we need to protect our troops after Desert Storm, like this is like the most notoriously like low casualty modern American conflict. So the fact that it's like the catalyst for it makes it feel insane.
Jake, you don't understand. They left 20 guys back there.
And it's kind of one of those things that like feels like it's like the movie in a lot of ways feels kind of timeless. Like this could be made today, but it's like the Desert Storm, the grunge reference, and then the fact that there's like a offhanded reference to like the Yugoslav wars.
Yeah, like Bosnia and Serbia.
Yeah.
And it is like these are kind of in case you forgot this was made in the 90s, we have these three things here to remind you.
Which is so ironic too about I'd agree with you on the whole aspect of patriotism for sure. But it's so funny that this movie that is, once again, we kicked off Blockbuster Month this year talking about propaganda films. And boy, I even mentioned in the big topics Michael Bay movies, because he has bragged about how he makes the American military look good, which is why they help collaborate on his films. And yet, it's funny, both today's films, there are lines that quote famous authors. And I'll talk about that quote from Con Air later when we cover the movie. But the quote regarding patriotism, ironically, in The Rock, is Sean Connery quotes Oscar Wilde that patriotism is a virtue of the vicious. And it's so funny that is thrown into this movie, because that's a very good quote, and I completely agree with it, and yet it feels disingenuous because of everything else that I've been shown.
Well, that is the thing about Michael Bay, is like, you're never truly gonna like drill down on what his politics actually are. Like, you can generally accept that he likes veterans and respects the military, but like in terms of where he like lands on like patriotism and America and like America's role in the world, like it varies fucking wildly, and it is because that dude understands that he the most important thing to him is making fucking money, making movies that are profitable, and you will never nail what he actually believes.
But I also feel like that's very classic kind of American insano politics, is the like, I'm very big on the military and the troops, but still hate the broader apparatus of, like, the man and the government.
Yeah,
like, that is, like, classic American shithead politics.
It's the Michael Jordan model. It's like, hey, Republicans buy
sneakers too. Yeah.
It's the whole thing. I mean, Michael Bayham, they buy Bayham sneakers too. So, I gotta keep that shit to myself, I guess. Yeah. Oh, also, really quickly, again, I talked about how this has a tremendous cast of characters. There are so many that guys in it. And one of my all-time favorite that guys, Michael Biehn, who is from the first Terminator. He is in Aliens. He's a big James Cameron guy. He's in Tombstone. Every time, whether he plays a good guy or whether he plays a bad guy, and in this one he plays Commander Anderson. God, talk about a guy that was never really a leading man in the big stuff, but holy shit, did he have screen presence. He was the guy that in this movie he leads the Navy SEAL team into Alcatraz, accompanying John Mason and Stanley Godspeed. And every time we get to the shower scene where they absolutely lay waste to all the Navy SEALs and you see Michael Biehn die, it fucking makes me sad. He's never alive long enough. Like, this movie, it always bumps me out at that scene because he's never alive long enough. Fucking kills me when Anderson dies.
That scene does crack me up, though, because it does have Anderson and Hummel doing a troop off. Just the bit where they're yelling at each other. Like, I will not take that order. That is a direct order. I will not take that order. Like, cutting back and forth before the gunfire breaks out. I always find a little funny. Well, since we've been talking about great casts and that guys, I think we should jump over to our next film, which is 1997's Con Air. Just paroled Army Ranger Cameron Poe, Nicolas Cage, is headed back to his wife, Monica Potter, but must fly home aboard a prison transport flight dubbed Jailbird with some of the worst criminals living. along with Diamond Dog, Ving Rhames, Baby-O, McKelty Williamson, genius serial killer Cyrus the Virus Grissom, John Malkovich, unleashes a violent escape plot in mid-flight. Secretly working with U.S. Marshal Vince Larkin, John Cusack, Poe tries to foil Grissom's plan. So, I feel like the premise of this movie makes the premise of The Rock seem like pretty normal. Because, like, every time I watch Con Air, the thing I think is, why the fuck is Cameron Poe on this plane? He is a parolee who committed manslaughter and, like, honestly shouldn't have been to prison because he was absolutely acting in self-defense.
He's a nobody.
Why is he on the plane with all of like the Supermax guys? I don't understand.
Yeah. And also his friend is getting like a transfer to another prison, but also it doesn't seem like his friend really did anything too bad because they're clearly on the same cell block, you know? So
yeah.
Neither of them are Supermax guys.
Yeah, well, you need his friend to have diabetes to get the reason not to get off the crazy plane.
Yeah,
of course. You can't leave a man behind. He is a ranger, and we have to be reminded of that.
Goddamn right.
Goddamn right. If there's one thing I love as a conceit, it's the conceit of, like, a core element of the plot of any movie being that no man can be left behind.
No man left behind.
You're goddamn right.
Also, I love that other than, like, the two leads in this movie, I mean, just to jump right into it, like, basically every one of, like, the villain supporting characters, with, like, sort of the exception of John Malkovich, is, like, a actively, like, really dated stereotype. It's, like, Dave Chappelle plays a straight crackhead. Danny Trejo, I think, is maybe the worst one, which is where he plays this, like, a Mexican gangster who has a
Mexican
tattoo
rapist
for each
named
woman
Johnny
he's
1023.
For, like, the tattoo for each woman he's raped on his arm is insane, and it's, like, wild that was
the fact
ever
that
acceptable.
you can just throw that in your big summer action movie is bizarre. Also, I'm really happy that Alexis's nephew has popped up in the background right as we're discussing Johnny 23.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Or what is it? Or it'd be Johnny 400 if they knew the truth.
Oh my god.
Well, and then there's like the kind of like weird pseudo black guerrilla families, Black Panther, black militant guy.
Yeah, Ving Rhames of Mission Impossible fame.
And the scene where he's like whipping the dudes as they build the thing is like where this movie's racism transcends into being fully awesome.
No, dude, that shit goes hard, and I will defend that to the death. That shit is
rocks.
Good cinema. I love that moment.
Who was the one who was doing the whipping?
Ving Rhames.
Diamond Dog. Ving Rhames.
That's what I thought. And I was like, you know what? That's pretty tight. That's
tight.
I love that.
I also like that Cyrus the Virus is like this total depraved maniac. But he does just, like, draw a very clear line at rape and will never go past it. Like,
yeah, he's like, that's not okay. I love to kill people. I love to kill people all day and night. But I have some morals, damn it.
And I
this
kind
is
of
not
respect
Nom.
that.
There are rules.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I do kind of respect it. It did make me like him more.
Yeah.
I am really morally conflicted about the fact that one of my favorite characters is definitely Steve Buscemi's character.
I love him in this movie.
You know what? He's funny. I don't know. Everything that he delivers just like super like kind of is kind of clever, kind of deadpan a little bit. Like the one where he's like life loves irony. He's like a bunch of guys singing along to Leonard Skinner, to a band that died
in a plane
midair,
crash. Yeah.
In a plane crash while we're in a plane. And
also,
I laughed hella hard. I was like, that's my guy right there.
Yeah, also like the insane child murder fake out this film does.
Oh yeah, that's so funny. But you know what's interesting
he gets
about
away.
The whole world in in
Yeah.
his hands.
What's funny, Alexis, when you mentioned Garland Green, Steve Buscemi's character, and then also Cyrus the Virus, and certain lines that he has, every time I watch Con Air, I go, God, this movie is dumb. But then these two characters would come in with some kind of like surprisingly quippy commentary about what's happening in the movie, and I go, no, wait, so this movie and the writers and the creators, it's not as dumb as I think it is. Like, they know what this is. And it's fascinating to me because, they come in with, like, some of this, because every time, like, they're playing Leonard Skinner, I'm like, oh, for Christ's sake, this song? And then there's a character that comments on, like, this is not a good song. And, it's funny to me.
And then when he's, like, they're crashing and he starts singing, he's got the whole world in his hands. I was like, you're a funny guy.
I will say, Alexis, I might be on board with you that Buscemi might be, because I feel like every time I watch this movie, I'm like, oh man, this cast is fucking so stacked when we're on the plane, and then about, 40 minutes in, Steve Buscemi shows up, and I'm like, oh shit, things just got a lot better. And clearly the movie understands that we all like Steve Buscemi, who is playing a man who, quote, makes the Manson family look like the Partridge Family and drove across 4 states wearing a woman's head as a hat. But the last shot of the movie is him free as a bird playing craps in Vegas. It understands that we want him to get away because we like Steve Buscemi. And that does kind of rule.
Yeah, I think as a child, when I watched this movie, I was confused about what had happened to the little girl. Like, I didn't understand why she was gone. And, I'm not a little girl anymore, so now I'm like, Well,
there's a shot.
There she goes.
No, but there's a shot at the end, I thought, where she's kind of waving at the plane.
She does. She waves at the plane, right?
Yeah, like he doesn't. The movie plays a weird is he gonna murder this child game?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, with the broken glass kind of.
Very, very interesting.
They show the broken cup kind of making you think he did, and then it's like, no, she's fine. Also, just insane that this movie has 80s sitcom outro. It ends with
It does the same thing Predator does.
Yeah. There's kind of the insane.
Everyone looks at the camera and it's whoever as Swamp Thing, and it's kind of him laughing at the camera.
Yep. Also, man, there are so many good little lines of dialogue in this movie, but I think my favorite has to be the bit where, so essentially these prisoners' whole scheme is that they're hijacking this plane because, 1, to escape, but 2, because this drug lord has paid them to free his son, and they touch down at this airstrip, and the drug lord's son is trying to kind of screw the rest of the convicts over by escaping in a smaller plane. And they stop him, and this guy's kind of pleading with Cyrus the Virus, and he's standing near a bunch of gasoline, and this guy goes, wait, Cy, and then John Malkovich just goes, Anara, and lights him on fire. And that is just some peak 1990s action movie cheese, and I fucking love it.
10 out of 10.
I think what it is, though, also, is just for the most part, how straight each of the actors are playing their characters. The shit that they're saying is silly. It's silly as shit, but they're just dead face doing it,
Yeah, because you've got just a cast of fucking insanely great actors in Con Air.
Okay, also though, I always loved Pinball's death for some reason. I found it really funny, but then also I always thought that his dead body looked funny. I don't know if it's just whatever they used as his body just looked interesting.
No, he has a little bit of a matte finish.
Yes.
Yeah,
his
he
dead
looks almost
corpse.
waxy.
Yeah.
I think he looks a little waxy, and I'm just like, he doesn't look quite right, you know?
And
But that's kind of the charm of it.
Yeah, and I was confused. Was it implied that he died of lack of air under the plane? Or?
No, I think
No,
he
he
got
gets
crushed
crushed.
by the landing
he got-
gear.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think he got caught in the landing gear because he got kind of like taken under all of a sudden.
Yeah, because the plane was going off without him, and he was chasing it down.
It's also wild
Yeah,
that this was like before Chappelle was like really.
Yeah, this was like
nearly as-
pre-Chappelle show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, so I talked about how, when Michael Biehn dies in The Rock, it always saddens me. When Dave Chappelle dies, which is another part of like Con Air that I never remember for some reason, like every time it gets to that point in the movie, I go, oh yeah, this happens. I'm met with the opposite reaction because I just don't like him in this movie, and he's annoying and not that funny. And when he dies, and the way he dies, I always goes, oh yeah, that's how
I don't have to stick around.
Well, he
we
sets
traded.
that guy on fire, and then that's the guy he's trying to like wave at in the plane, and the guy's like, "Fuck you, dude."
Yeah, we traded Dave Chappelle for Steve Buscemi. That's a fucking
good
great trade. I'll take that trade any day of the week.
That sounds
it's
like
also-
the racial draft skit from the Chappelle show. Like, we trade
Great.
Dave Chappelle for Steve Buscemi. By the way, his lifeless corpse falls on the car of which city, Alexis? What city does his corpse fall into?
This came up multiple times, and I was like, I don't remember them mentioning Fresno. At the very end, I think it's like at the very end, John Cusack's character says something like, oh, if you ever need to talk to me, hit me up in Fresno. And I was like, I don't know, it's so few and far in between that anybody ever mentions Fresno in a movie that I kept feeling like I was blacking out every time. I was like, they can't possibly be talking about my Fresno.
Yeah, how often are bodies falling from the sky where you're at, Alexis?
God, in Fresno,
Not that
it's
often,
just
but
bodies.
are being found in the canal, at least every few years. So.
I'm trying to think of like other Fresno movies, and the only one that I can think of is that it's a significant plot point in Monsters vs. Aliens. That's the only other movie I can think of that has a
Never
big
seen that
Fresno
one,
mentioned.
Wow. Alexis, you haven't seen Monsters versus Aliens? What are you doing, bro?
I know. Yeah, true cinema over here.
Man.
I just can't get over the explosions in this movie where Nick Cage jumps away from them because they're so fucking funny. He looks like he's like for a second almost flying away from the explosion.
Yeah, he's
almost
got
like
tree
he's
squirrel energy.
somersaulting. Yeah, he's got this like fluidity. I don't know. Every time it's just so funny. It's so funny.
Well,
It's very, I don't know.
Of course he has a fluidity and like a grace to him because, he's a U.S. Army Ranger and his body is a deadly weapon, which means he is not subject to the same laws that govern the rest of us.
I like the judiciary rules that exist within the Con Air world.
Which is, somehow, this is the only time where being a vet is somehow, disadvantageous to you in the justice system.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, it's like they convict on a bell curve in this world.
Yep.
It's all relative. Like if you can use your body as a deadly weapon, then if you were defending yourself and it's purely manslaughter, then you have to go away for years.
Yeah. God.
It's also-
Also, like, his fucking lawyer is like, don't plead not guilty.
He
because
has
you
the
might get
world's
more
worst
years.
lawyer.
Yeah, and then he does plead guilty and he gets more years than the guy said he would. And I was like,
Yeah, what the
I feel
fuck
like
is
you're
that
not having
shit?
a reaction to that. This guy really led you astray, Like,
Yeah, and his lawyer shows up and he's fucking sweaty as shit and disheveled.
It's one of the most clear-cut examples in a film I've ever seen of, oh shit, this is my lawyer dog, I'm definitely going to jail.
Yeah, it reminds me of George Michael from Arrested Development, and he just goes, God, I gotta get better lawyers. This is terrible.
Also, I was like, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm super confused. I'm like, does the army not pay him enough? Like, what's going on there? Like, why can't he afford a better lawyer?
Probably because he spent it all on like a new Camaro. If it was like a Wildcat, maybe a Hellcat.
Jake, I think you don't understand that Cameron Poe's a responsible family man. He also, I love when fucking McKelty Williamson is like he's like, I think it's after he's been shot. And he's like dying and he's like, all I can think about is how there is no God. I'm just gonna die. And then Nic Cage looks him in the eye and goes, I'm gonna show you God does exist.
That's exactly what you want to hear from a white man.
To say to someone as they're dying.
But he saved him, so I would contend that Con Air proves the existence of God.
He did show that God exists then, right?
Yeah, I think God confirmed.
Cameron Poe proves God exists.
Absolutely, which
Cameron
makes sense.
Poe is God's strongest soldier.
Fucking
That's
absolutely,
right.
absolutely great take with those flowing locks and like Nicolas Cage being like weirdly jacked. I believe that.
No, also like the scene where he steps off the bus to go on the plane and then he like kind of like does the face blowing his hair in the wind is insane.
That shit's so
also
crazy.
the one where
It's
he
so funny.
like convinces Cyrus not to kill the guards who were on the plane and then like looks over at Diamond Dog and winks at him. There's a lot of great Cage imagery in this film.
Yeah, also just like the amount of play the prison commissary like gift bunny gets.
The bunny gets so much play in this movie. John Malkovich threatens the bunny with a gun.
Yes, he
The
does.
bunny down.
Or the bunny gets it.
I think it's really funny that like we have like this fucking convict, right? Danny Trejo's character, Johnny
23.
Johnny 23. And like clearly machismo, misogynistic, like he's got some shit going on. But then you just have this one character who also is like clearly like gay, you know?
Sally Can't Dance.
Sally Can't Dance shows up in a dress like all of a sudden and everybody's cool with it. And I'm just like, well, I guess good thing Danny Trejo was trying to rape that woman over there because now he's strung up.
Isolate that audio.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got her.
Okay, here's my question. I have a question related to this, but please continue.
Okay, but then, and I'm thinking like, oh, that's cool. Like, you know, like there's no homophobia or anything. But then like the movie very specifically makes the choice that when Sally Can't Dance is in the way of Nic Cage, he thinks about it for a second, doesn't punch him, and just like, I don't know, like backhands him away like he's just some bitch,
slaps,
you know?
Bitch slap, I believe
And that shit was just, it's so funny, but also, I don't even know what to say about it.
Well, Sally Can't Dance is also insane because there's no reason for that character. That character, like, really contributes nothing to the plot of the film. Like, they don't
What
need
did
to
Sally
be
Can't Dance do?
Okay,
I'm
this
like, why are you on Supermax?
To 100% steal a bit from the How Did This Get Made podcast, they posit that Sally Can't Dance went to prison simply for being too gay.
Yeah. Send them to a Supermax prison. Too gay.
Yeah, this guy's way too gay. He can't be out on our streets. Okay, in that vein though, and tying our two films together, I didn't think about this connection between these two films until I watched them back to back. Which movie has a more offensive portrayal of a gay person?
Con Air, easily.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I'm going Con Air.
Yeah, because I think the thing about The Rock is it is just like a pretty like standard like 90s comedy gay guy stereotype.
Also, in The Rock, it feels like there's an element to it, which is like, this is set in San Francisco, so we gotta have a guy like this.
He was just proud of his work, you know?
Yeah.
He took pride in his work, guys, you know?
He even says as much. He's like, I just want to make sure that he likes his hair.
Yeah, it's really funny
we're
and
in
cool.
San Francisco, okay? Like,
Yeah, that's what
I'm
I'm
sure
saying.
you can
I
find
think
a
he was the
barber.
character
You
Is
just
this
throw a
Michael Bay that
stone
we
and you
have
can
on the
find-
show?
Yeah, hold on. What the fuck is happening?
No, I'm saying I think Michael Bay 100% was like, well, this movie's in San Francisco. We need to put a fruit in here somewhere, and then definitely like wrote that character in to be very gay.
Well, I mean, listen, Michael Bay does
How else
love,
will you represent the city?
he does love a broad racial stereotype, and I guess he decided, or just a broad stereotype in general, so I guess he decided that, yeah, it's San Fran, it's time to do gay people. Man.
But yeah, I would argue that Sally Can't Dance is a more egregious representation of the queer community between these two films.
Yeah, because it's also like he's putting on the dress, and it's like, oh, are all gay men like cross dressers? Are we like, is Sally Can't Dance supposed to be like trans? Like, we don't know.
In the movie,
Sally Can't Dance
doesn't
is
care.
first and foremost a dangerous criminal.
I will say this. She seems like she's a good time.
I
They seem
don't.
like they're a good time. I was like, yeah, okay, girl. Yeah, you show up in that dress.
Yeah, again, I will say, in terms of the prejudice this movie throws out, which is wide-reaching, honestly, it does go down after Dave Chappelle dies, because he says about, like, 7 different horrible things about Native Americans in the span of, like, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
90s movies, guys.
I do like his line, though, where the agent, the DEA agent is like, hey, I'm DEA. Do you know what that means? Holding a gun to Dave Chappelle. And Dave Chappelle goes, yeah, you're the most fucked up person here.
Yeah, you're
I
the
do
most
like that
crooked
line.
motherfucker on this plane.
Yeah, that's a good line.
You know, I will say, bringing it back to the bunny, I do think the bunny kind of leads to a genuinely a little bit sweet moment. It's maybe somewhat undercut by the score at the end, but I think Nicolas Cage sells the fuck out of that scene where he reconnects with his wife and daughter. I was moved. I was a little moved. I think he did great
was
work
not
there.
moved.
I was moved.
I was not moved because I put myself in her shoes and I decided that I would never, ever hug a man that was that greasy and sweaty.
Wow, Alexis,
You know,
you're not accepting that Cameron Poe's a goddamn honk and a stud.
You know,
I
that
don't like
reminds
this
me.
Mass
Not with that
marginalization here.
slicked back hair. Oh my
My
god,
Slicked
good
back,
lord.
it's pushed back.
As I've mentioned before previously on this show, my partner is a makeup artist. And after watching these two films back to back, she brought to my attention a concept that I guess I've always been aware of, but I didn't know there's an actual name for. And there's something in the makeup community called sexy blood. And it's an actual, like, when they're describing like what kind of grease and dirt and blood do we put on our hero for this point of the movie? And it's usually an action film or a war film. And they will give you the term, oh, give him the sexy blood look. And it's very distinct, where it's usually a cut on the eyebrow or a bruise where there's a little bit of blood coming off one of the eyebrows, or maybe it's coming off their scalp or down the temple, and they're greasy and they're sweaty. And the classic example that makeup artists use is Bruce Willis from Die Hard.
Yeah, I was gonna say
that is
Die
sexy
Hard.
blood. And it's supposed to make your masculine hero look vulnerable and hurt, but you want to hold him and you want to be held by him because he's a sexy man. And both of today's movies have sexy blood on full display, and that's exactly a perfect example, Alexis and Zach, that you're talking about, is at the end of the movie there's a slow-mo shot of Nicolas Cage and his weird wispy hair just like blowing
It looks
back,
great.
and he's He's covered in schmutz, and he has blood, and I'm with Zach. He looks great. Like, he looks like a fucking action star.
Nic Cage is fucking shredded in this movie.
He's weirdly fit.
Is.
Yeah, it's called prison buff,
really
baby.
Is.
Yeah. So, Alexis, you're saying that you're not attracted to Cameron Poe.
I think I'm not straight enough to be attracted to either Bruce Willis or Cameron Poe.
Wow.
Well, tie a yellow ribbon around the old oak tree.
Just missed the mark on that, I guess. But I will say I love movies like Con Air because, like, unlike The Rock, where it's like, okay, it makes sense, but it also doesn't make sense. But it's not silly enough for me to give a fuck about it not making sense a little bit. Whereas Con Air, it's just some silly goose shit, you know? Like, they totally can fucking, like, shoot this plane down, right, over a non-civilian area. And then this guy who's totally a fucking dick the whole time is like, okay, I guess you're right. Let's not do that, blah, blah, blah. And then they fucking crash this plane on, like, Las Vegas, the main Las Vegas Strip.
A city that is in the desert.
Yeah, Zach and I talked about this, like, how, like, there, like, in Vegas, there would have been infinite, like, literally anywhere else in that general
They
city would
had
have been
to
a
put
better
it down on the strip.
To land a plane.
That was crazy to me, too, because I was like, first of all, it's the 90s. The Strip, you could literally just fly sideways a little bit and you wouldn't have hit that many things. There weren't as many things, buildings that were up at that time in that area. Like I used to go to Las Vegas quite a lot between like 2000 and 2010. So like I've been there since then, and like there's been a lot of new builds since then. So, you know, the 90s, there was not a lot of stuff on the newer main strip area. They could have flown anywhere else and they would not have fucking balls to the wall action. Dude, when the propeller comes off and then just like cuts through the middle of the plane, I was like, see, that's that silly shit I can get behind, you know?
Well, I like that the movie comments on that because Agent Duncan Malloy, who's the DEA asshole who owns the Corvette, he's literally standing there with John Cusack and Vince Larkin afterwards, after all, basically Las Vegas has been exploded, and looks at him and goes, yeah, you know, it's a good thing we didn't shoot it down in the desert. And John Cusack goes, yeah, you know, it ended up a lot better this way. Like the movie's commenting on how fucking ridiculous this was. And I love that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now that we're talking about the end of the movie, tying this back to Kill, the Indian action movie that we watched before I left, where the main character's girlfriend became one of the most killed people in movies. Another strong contender for that is John Malkovich at the end of this film, who gets let's see. He's like trying to knock Nic Cage off of the back of a fire truck because, much like Speed, this movie says we need to add one more vehicle right at the end here.
The fire truck motorcycle chase?
Yes, yeah. Nic Cage jumps off a motorcycle, is hanging off the back of the ladder on the fire truck. Cyrus the Virus is trying to hit him with a hook. Nic Cage grabs the hook, breaks it in half, stabs him through the ankle, then handcuffs him to the ladder, which extends up, smashes through a sky bridge. Malkovich lands in like a construction site where there's like a big...
He gets electrocuted first.
Sorry. As he goes down, he falls through power lines. He gets electrocuted. Like lands on a conveyor belt, which spits him to like a big fucking...
crusher.
Yeah, Jake and I were discussing what actually is that?
Yeah, like why is he just like in the middle of that? We got the ball crusher, right?
It's a gravel plant. They thrust him into a gravel plant. It's crushing rocks.
You know what it was giving me was, do you remember in How the Grinch Stole Christmas where they're like bonking the presents, Fragile?
Yep.
That's what that scene reminded me at the very end. I was like, oh, so they have to smash it? Oh, I guess that's the only way we can decide he's definitely dead. All right.
Yeah, and then his skull is crushed. It is phenomenal.
Yeah. He's watermeloned.
Yeah, it's so funny. We talk about the 1980s as being the decade of excess, but talking about the final motorcycle fire truck chase in Con Air and everything we talked about with The Rock and everything that happens in this movie, classic seminal 90s action films. They talk about how oftentimes when you're making a movie, you have to cut things for budget. You have to get rid of. You have to tone things down to just make it a little bit more practical to shoot. And yet you watch these two films and every fucking thing that happens is cranked up to 11 and you really go, wait, so now after a massive shootout in the desert at this airstrip and then taking over a plane that has crashed on that fucking right through the Las Vegas Strip. Now we're in a tunnel chase. It's like, it seems like they didn't say no to anything. It seems like everything was on the table at all times.
Yeah, Jerry Bruckheimer and Don Stimson were full of coke.
Yeah, Jerry Bruckheimer. But also, don't you think that, I don't know, I feel like, yeah, the 80s were, excess, but I feel like the 90s were, the era where people were just high on what they could try to do with special effects and visual effects. They're we've gained some ground here, so we must put more into the movies. The people want more.
Yeah, it was the era of CGI starting to emerge as a somewhat viable technology, but also practical effects had kind of reached a pinnacle. So you could really just kind of throw everything at it.
So I think what would be really interesting would be to take, I don't know, a screen grab of Nic Cage jumping away from any of those fires and to do did you guys ever see those videos where people are flying through space?
Yes.
Yes, I think it'd be hilarious to take Nic Cage jumping away from these fires and then just take him shooting off into space. That shit would be hella funny. Exactly.
That would be good. Wow.
Oh yeah.
We've all seen those.
Well, do we have anything else about Con Air?
Well, I guess I would just add, because it wasn't brought up, that both of these movies do feature a welcome to the title of the film moment, which I'm always a fan of. There's a welcome, literally, and both times they know it too, is the John Malkovich going, well, you're all aboard Con Air or whatever, and then Sean Connery opening the door after going through the nut crusher fire balloon contraption and going, welcome to the Rock.
Yeah. I like to be introduced to the movie.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I don't think this movie would work without, obviously the ensemble cast is very important, but in general, I don't think it would work at all without John Malkovich being our main villain.
Cyrus the Virus.
He's just so talented. He's I feel like when you see Nic Cage in different things, you can always be oh, it's Nic Cage, for the most part. There's definitely some movies where you're just oh, wow, that's not something I've seen from him. But I feel every time I've seen John Malkovich in something, I've always been that's crazy how he just molds into whatever he's doing.
Yeah, and I like how he's evil in this, but there's also an element of I don't really want to be here right now to his performance as well. He's evil, but he's not doing it for love of the game. He's doing it with a goal, and he's kind of fed up with this shit.
Which actually both of our villains in today's films are very similar in that regard. Yeah.
Whenever I think about John Malkovich, I think about this story that Matt Damon told about how John Malkovich came in to do a scene on Rounders where he played a Russian gangster. And throughout the production building up to Malkovich coming, everyone was oh shit, John Malkovich is going to be here. John Malkovich is going to be here. And when he finally got to set, everyone was so fucking excited that John Malkovich is there. And he sits down across the poker table from Matt Damon, and they call action, and John Malkovich just goes, "If you don't have my money, then you are mine." And the director calls cut, and like everyone is like applauding, and Matt Damon is like kind of looking at him like, "What the fuck? Really, dude? This is what you're doing?" And they roll again, and again he goes, "If you don't have my money, then you are mine." And everyone is like going nuts for it on set, and then Malkovich kind of sees Matt Damon looking at him. And he just, like, waits until there's nobody else, like, really paying attention to them, and just leans over to Matt Damon and goes, "I'm a terrible actor."
Which is great, yeah.
John Malkovich is just, much like Nick Cage, a very interesting dude.
I whenever I think of it, in this movie, when you think of it a lot, I don't know if you guys have seen that old, it's like, gotta be like 90s or 80s SNL skit where it's like him reading a Christmas story to a bunch of kids, and it's just like kind of, he's talking about like some Dutch version of Santa that steals your toes, and he's like, "When I was a kid, we used to suck on pennies, and it was a delight." Like, it's just kind of the most like over the top, like just kind of like traumatizing story told to kids, and it's very funny, just mostly because he sells the hell out of some kind of midline so well.
Yeah, I feel like people would pay good money for like John Malkovich to like, I don't know, humiliate them, or like, you know how like people pay for like humiliation, or like when people are like pay pigs or something.
Are you just trying to explain something that you would like, Alexis? It's okay if you are.
Maybe there's a reason why it popped into my head, but I was like, you know what? I feel like he'd be really good at that. Like, just like putting somebody down.
Yeah, because like unrelated, but I do have this giant latex suit in my closet.
God. Well, I think
I actually
we
one more
should
thing
wrap up. So yeah, let's get into final
I have
thoughts.
to be up early, but I have to throw this out there. So really quickly, I want to give a shout out to one of my favorite character actors, Nick Chinlund, who plays Billy Bedlam in this movie. Who is he's the guy that almost does not put the bunny back in the box. I always knew you was a punk. He plays some of the most villainous characters on Law and Order Special Victims Unit and these other great sci-fi shows. So I love seeing him in this movie. But there's a great story with Danny Trejo. Someone asked him, "You were in Con Air that is full of like big macho guys, and like out of like everyone that you worked with, whether it's like Nick Cage or Ving Rhames or Nick Chinlund or John Malkovich, like who
was the craziest?
Who was the craziest motherfucker to work with?" And Danny Trejo, like without even batting an eye, went, "Oh, John Cusack." And they go, "Really? John Cusack?" And he goes, "Yeah, dude, like he's got like crazy motherfucking eyes. Like there's something wrong with that dude." And
That's funny.
John Cusack, I read a little bit about him, and I mentioned that there were two quotes in both of these films that quote famous authors. And I love that Vince Larkin, played by John Cusack, throws in a Dostoevsky quote in this, which is really good, where he talks about the degree of civilization in a society can be judged by observing its prisoners, which was not in the script, apparently. That was a choice that John Cusack just ad-libbed that. And also a choice on his behalf was the socks and sandals, because he purposely wanted to subvert the blockbuster genre by, you know what, I'm going to throw in a Dostoevsky quote and I'm going to wear sandals and socks, the most inappropriate footwear possible.
Well, and that's
also most inappropriate footwear possible. This movie's riffing on Die Hard, a movie that hinges on inappropriate footwear.
That's true.
Well, also, I just think like the shot that's insane of his like weird leather keen type sandals where it pans up to him is a great shot. Like just like the way it cuts from like the weird leather dad sandals to like him in a full suit is awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, I just wanted to throw in that story that for some reason, I don't find surprising at all that John Cusack, out of all of these people, is the most unhinged person.
I love that. I don't think we ever talked about Nick Cage's accent in this, but
why would we? It's great.
Wow.
It's really good.
That's it. That's all I have to say.
Nothing to say about it. It's awesome.
Wow.
Sweet home Alabama. Goodness
Dear
gracious.
Hummingbird, tie a yellow ribbon around the old oak tree, because this old dog's coming home.
I miss you, Casey.
Well, do we have, Alexis, any final thoughts on Con Air and or The Rock?
Well, now that Mick tried to do the Nick Cage voice, now I'm thinking Nick Cage watched fucking Forrest Gump and thought, yeah, I'm going to do this voice.
I can do better.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad we're all on the same page here.
I mean, Bubba's in the movie.
That is true. McKelty Williamson, who is also in the Purge election year.
That's right.
Oh, okay.
The Purge cast probably coming back to you pretty soon now that Sage will be back in the country. Jake, any final thoughts on these films?
Not really. Just that, like, you don't see a lot of these. Like, these are just good old-fashioned movie-ass movies, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't see a lot of, like, movies come out with, like, this simple and, like, kind of iconic of we need to break into Alcatraz, or, a plane full of prisoners has some hijinks happen. Like, they don't make them like this anymore, and there's elements of this movie where you can argue, especially Con Air, where you can argue that that's maybe a good thing, but I do think it's sad that we've kind of lost, like, just sort of like a simple, great action film with an insane premise, like, what if Supermax was in the sky?
What if two guys had to keep a cop alive in an ambulance?
Yeah. But it doesn't quite have this...
It doesn't quite have the full insane energy.
Yeah, it feels almost
I guess when she fucking tries to open heart surgery or some shit, that shit was crazy.
Oh my god, that bit's so good. Yeah, where they do fucking surgery on him and they loop a fucking... You know what's a good movie is Ambulance? Yeah, no, I tend to agree with your feelings, Jake. These movies really are just... From an era of Blockbuster that I truly miss, and I'm just gonna throw in that I like the bit where Nick Cage is looking for a needle at the like desert airstrip and opens a first aid kit and finds that it's full of onions and chicken feet, and it's never explained. Mick, any final thoughts?
I mean, really, yeah. I think Jake, you summarized this the best. Yeah, even as I was rewatching these movies, I went, yeah, they really do not make movies like this anymore, and that might be a good thing. But ultimately, it is sad. Yeah, this is. They're so simple. They're beautiful in that way, and they're immensely entertaining, and it. Not to wax poetic about some bygone era, because I think nostalgia can be kind of icky, but yeah, all this stuff was from my childhood, and it's a shame that they don't make movies that are this simple anymore, and that they throw everything at it, and it's all hinged upon great actors that you go to the cinema to see them play off of one another. And just see what happens on screen with their chemistry, and just put them in these absolutely wacky scenarios that you could pitch in one sentence in an elevator. I think these were perfect picks for Blockbuster Month. I'm absolutely glad I got to rewatch these.
And we're now...
Where are we going next?
We're at our final pick of Blockbuster Month. And it is my pick. And, we've done a couple movies from the 90s, a movie from the 2000s, a movie from the 80s. And I've enjoyed being in the 90s so much, I'm sticking around here.
Well, whose pick was last week?
Last week, you. Too Fast, Too Furious.
Oh no, I meant this.
No,
you
this
meant
week. This was a
your
consensus
choice.
between me and Mick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, we schemed this for a while.
I see.
Next week, we will be discussing the 1990 American science fiction action film Total Recall, directed by Paul Verhoeven.
That's a movie-ass movie.
You're goddamn right. And it stars a movie star who we have not yet covered, Mr. Arnold Schwarzenegger, as well as Sharon Stone, Ronnie Cox, and returning to Blockbuster Month, last seen in our first episode of the month, Michael Ironside.
Hell yeah.
I am
This is our
very
first
excited.
Paul Verhoeven film.
One of my favorite fucking guys. And yeah, if you want to find Total Recall, you can find it for free on Pluto TV, or if you're subscribed to Paramount Plus, you can find it there, or you can rent it wherever you rent your movies, or find it on our shelf.
Zach, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say they are not subscribed to Paramount Plus.
Yeah, that's actually illegal. If you want to follow us, the Film Majors, you can find us at Film Majors Pod on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and TikTok. And you can find us on YouTube at the Film Majors Podcast. Subscribe to us.
Subscribe.
You're goddamn right. Give us a rating on Spotify, all that good shit. And with that, we'll see you next week.